Maybe. I'll
Hey,
let you
good
decide.
afternoon, everybody. Tom Stewart here. I'm with Liz Trotter. This is Smart Business Moves. Hello,
Hey,
Liz.
Tom. Hey, Tom.
My, we're having fun today, aren't we?
Oh my gosh, always a party. I went and watched your Facebook Live with Matt last week on Thursday. Looked pretty good, lots of good information. So that looked like it went well.
A lot of moving parts. I saw something today in a Facebook group where somebody was asking the question of what are you going to do with your PPP money?
Mm-hmm.
And there were a lot of people chiming in with all kinds of ideas. And Matt was in this group. And Matt, said, well, I'm going to use my PPP money to pay payroll for the purpose that it's intended to be used. Now, the money I save in its place, I might do this or that. So,
Yeah.
One of the things we didn't talk about Thursday, but it's really important, we want to make sure that we're using the PPP money the way that the SBA wants us to use that money.
Yeah, that is what it is, right?
Right. It's not a gift.
So PPP stands for Payroll Protection Plan, right?
Paycheck.
Paycheck?
Yep.
Paycheck Protection Plan?
Yeah, it's protecting the paycheck of the employee. I used to get them confused too. I'm pretty sure it's paycheck.
I believe you. I just thought it was payroll for some reason. I don't even know where I got that.
We think about payroll,
Yeah.
but you're going to get more votes if you protect paychecks.
That makes perfect sense. That's very logical. Yeah, good argument for paychecks.
I've been slow to share this, I think, and if I've already shared it, just correct me and I'll move on. Last week, I believe, may even been the week before last. It's all a blur. We were working on, guess what? How to lower your direct payroll to revenue, but we were looking at it from a hiring and training and onboarding standpoint. And you had a spreadsheet that showed an exhibit. It showed the reasons that people leave over various periods of time, and I was to put that in the resource library as a download. Did I ever share this?
I don't think so.
Okay, well, here it is. And if you click on that, it'll download the document for you.
All right.
So Robin, if you're here, sorry I was a bit slow on that, but it's there now. Actually, I actually did it about a week ago. I just forgot to tell anybody.
Well, if Robin pops in today, I'll make sure and tell him he can hit one of these links.
Okay.
Yeah, he just thinks you're ignoring him.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Join the club.
Yeah. I did it. I just didn't remember to tell anybody. Keep up with.
He may have already found it because he's a pretty resourceful guy.
It's been there for about a week, I believe.
Yeah.
So what else is going on? What's going on in your world, Liz?
Same old around here. Just, first day of February kind of freaking me out. January is already gone. I'm like, what? No, we're already, a third of the way into the quarter. That's crazy. So we have been working a lot in groups on trying to get some alignment between what we're doing today and where we want to be in a year. That is so much harder than people give credence to. People are like, I just say what my goal is and then I'm just going to make it happen. Yeah, but how? It's not so easy. So we do that on Mondays. You know that already, on Monday check-in. But just every single Monday, I would say at least half of us find ourselves like, what the heck? Why am I doing this crazy stuff? Because it pops up.
What do they call that? The whirlwind? Like in the
whirlwind.
Disciplines of execution?
Yeah, that's what we call it, the whirlwind. Yeah. So it's easy to find yourself there. And
yeah, I mean, but you kind of like, I'll roll over look at my, before I get up in, I'll look at my phone to see what, came in, the night before. And it's like, well, crap, I didn't want to, this wasn't part of the plan.
Yeah, not part of what I was going to do today. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and sometimes, urgency a lot of times will trump what's important. So that's okay. But I think it's really important that people remember that if you let urgency trump importance too often, your company is sliding backwards. You're doing the urgent and you're not doing the important. You're not getting the important stuff done. So we're talking to one person today, and we were talking about how. So do you realize that you are, we're a little bit blunt in some of these groups. Do you realize that you actually run a residential cleaning company? And she's like, yeah. I was like, so did you take special classes for your firefighting abilities? Like, how did you become a firefighter then? She's like, oh, because it's tough. The whirlwind can grab you and just suck you right in. That happens to me.
And the thing that kind of makes that insidious is here at the moment when the whirlwind hits you, then the best bad option you might have is to jump in and deal with the urgent.
Yeah.
But, in order to fix that, you have to plan. And it's like, okay, well, what do I need to do to make sure that a month from now, when that happens, I'm not the person putting the fire out?
Yeah. Or ideally, that fire doesn't exist.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Ideally, that fire goes away, and we took the matches away from the child. Ideally, but. So,
you got to, if there is no other alternative than for you to deal with the urgent, you also need to say, well, I need a better plan. This isn't what we want to be doing moving forward.
And you have to come up with your plan when you're not in the middle of it. That's not the time to come up with your plan. That's another mistake that people make, is while they're in it, they're trying to hello, Linda. To start of school.
There you go.
Yeah, it's not time to solve the problem when you're in it, because your brain isn't in the right headspace for it. You're not actually able to think strategically. You're thinking from a place of, oh my gosh, the house is burning down, and not your best plan. So coming up with plans for what you're going to do next time is so helpful. I don't think people recognize how just really, really beneficial it is. But I recommend that people just keep a list of those. We have different names for them, but those list of things that that are common problems for you, common hurdles, common, just we'll use hurdle for a good word. And when that hurdle pops up for you, what are your solutions? What are your go-tos? What can you do? How can you fix it? So, hey, Starlene. Oh, it's been COVID week for you. I'm sorry. You personally, or you in your company, are you getting hit with a lot of COVID? Either one is bad, but.
Yeah, and I guess to be fair, I mean, that's an example of like whirlwind that, sometimes it's just not, it's kind of like hurricanes and real whirlwind. Sometimes it's just a act of nature, and you just kind of have to roll with it and do the best you can.
Yep. And so the objective is to not be in the whirlwind too often. If you find yourself in there a lot, too often, more often than you'd like to be in there, then there's some systems and operations problems that need to be addressed.
And sometimes that's self-inflicted, and sometimes you're there because that's where you want to be. I mean, some level, depending upon the nature of the immediate thing, the urgent thing that you're dealing with, a lot of times if you have a great disdain for that urgent thing, that immediate thing, that you find a way not to have to do it too much. It's the things that, you know, certain types of problems, you know, you might like fixing certain types of problems.
You might be good at it. That's a real problem. If you're really good at fixing certain types of problems, you might be creating those problems just so that you can jump on in there and rescue yourself. Me too, re-COVID. Office manager and tech have COVID. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, it's employing customers. Everyone's okay and understanding. Yeah, I'm really happy that everybody is so understanding still these days, because you know, a lot of people are still not in the mindset that it's like around. Who was I talking to? Sarah Mitchell. You know, Phoenix is supposed to be like a huge hotspot around the whole world. It's like big. And she doesn't know one person that has or has ever had COVID. What?
No,
How is that?
no way.
Well, that's what she said. I mean, you call her a liar. I'm not gonna.
Well, I'm just, you know,
And she might mean that she personally knows them versus, you know, like a Facebook friend or something like that. But she doesn't like personally know anybody in her life that has COVID or has had it. I was like, wow, all right. And that's in Phoenix. So
you know, there's a lot of concern about some of these variants that are coming out that are spread more easily and possibly are more deadly, if you will. And I guess especially I was reading something the other day about one in Brazil that they're particularly concerned about. And you know, they're talking about the peaks and valleys, and I guess the R naught factor is actually going down in most states. I mean, it's still at a high level in terms of the daily spread, but it's not still going up. It's kind of flattening out. But there's a concern that with some of these variants that it might take off again. And we're getting slow. We're a bit slow at getting the vaccines out, and the longer that takes, the more opportunity that the virus can get out there and spread, and these variants can spread.
yeah, us too, Susan. That's our situation as well. But the one thing that is kind of nice, I don't know if you're dealing with this as well, Susan, Nashville. We are not as panicked now, at least in my company. Our people would tend to panic if they found out that a client had COVID. They'd be like, they don't want to go back. You know, like even 2 weeks just felt like, I don't want to go in there. But now everybody has a much better, I guess, just a feeling around, a feeling of safety around managing it, knowing what to do, and those types of things. So that psychological safety piece is really, really important, especially for our technicians, so our cleaning professionals. So I'm happy about that.
We're
Well,
getting
now
used
I
to it.
realize it's 2:15. We should probably get to work. Just see, Tom and I didn't see each other over the weekend either, so we're just chatting,
Catching up.
catching up.
Okay, so to take it from the top, we're still talking about red numbers and green numbers, and the red number we've been focusing on is the loaded direct payroll to revenue. Try to get that out. And as a recap, you can do that by making the top number go down, the loaded direct payroll, and making the revenue go up, or a combination of the two. Making the top number go down, the labor load, we've talked about all the action steps that we can take in order to make that go down. I think that we learned some things there. Reducing training expense, we spent a fair amount of time on that. And this resource here in Cleaning Business Today you can download can help some with that. And we started talking about productivity, and we're going to be talking about productivity and efficiency. And these are a couple of metrics that are basically telling you how much value you're getting out of your direct labor, if you will. There's this concept, this economic concept, and you know, Liz doesn't like it when I use it because it's not a, you know, it'd be nice if there was a plainer way to say it, but It's called return on human equity. How good a return are you getting off of the people in your payroll? And if you think about this, there's some companies that can make a ton of money with a really small payroll. Some of the tech companies do that, right? Amazon and Google, they hire a bunch of people, but relative to the billions of dollars that they generate in revenue, their return off of every person that they hire is crazy high. I should do some research and actually share that. But it's a whole lot higher than somebody that's in the service business. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. How about y'all? Everybody understand this idea of return on human capital? I think if you think of it in terms of return on investment, it's a little bit easier too. So you because we're all really familiar, or most of us are pretty familiar with the ROI term. And so we know that it's how much money are we getting back for the investment that we're putting out. So the same thing with what Tom's talking about is the return on human capital.
Capital, right. That's the proper term. I said that wrong. It's a return on human capital.
Okay. And so that just means what's the return that we're getting off of each person's work that they're doing. And so I think that this is really useful for everybody to be able to think in terms of. It's a clunky concept, and it's a clunky term, which is why I don't love it when Tom says it, because we don't have a better term, but it's the term that is bandied about and that everybody knows. So
when you're looking at your business, when I say looking at your business, I mean, I want us to try to visualize, like when you're at your office, or actually, have your employees in front of you doing things that they do. Be thinking about, what that's costing you and what's being produced. And, what is the amount of revenue that's being generated per labor hour? What is the gross profit that's being generated per labor hour? What's the net profit? Which is really the ultimate goal that's being generated per hour, per salary dollar, per full-time equivalent, which is a fancy word for, somebody working 40 hours a week. Out of the people that you hire, what are you getting in return for that? And too often, we've got a lot of lost opportunity, a lot of lost productivity, a lot of lost efficiency. And that's where we're going with this, because if you manage productivity and if you manage efficiency, you'll be able to generate more profit off of the work that's being done, because you're going to be getting more output with less input. And nowhere in here is it implied that you're going to be cutting people's salary or anything like that. But what we are implying is that we want people to be able to produce as much as they can, because especially now more than ever, you're going to be hearing more and more about living wage and minimum wage, and doing like a national $15 an hour minimum wage. So if you're at some place where minimum wage is already $15 an hour, well, that's going to go up too, I would presume. And nobody cleans homes for minimum wage. So if the minimum wage is 15, then you're going to have to pay more than that, because there's easier jobs out there now for $15 an hour than cleaning homes. But it's okay to pay people more if they're worth more, if they're producing more. And that's really kind of our role as business owners. Because I'm going to go back to the beginning of this. Go ahead, Liz.
I do want to put in one little point here, Tom. Sometimes when people are talking about this, what we hear is you got to drive harder on these people. You got to be meaner. You got to push them. And really, their job is going to be more difficult because you're just going to be like on them. But that's not what we're talking about. There are other ways, much better ways, to help people become more productive than just driving on them. Right, Tom?
Absolutely. We're going to be sharing those, because At the highest level, we started off, this is one of the first concepts we talk about. If you're profitable, you're able to create better jobs, provide better service, and build a better business. And that's kind of a virtuous circle. It's you either have all three or you don't have any. Okay. The only way that you can have one is to have all three. And part of our jobs is to build better jobs for the people that work for us. And part of that is making sure that people are being paid well. And you can pay well and still be profitable if you're helping your employees, especially your cleaning professionals, be more productive. If people are worth more, people are producing more, you can pay them more. That makes sense, right?
It does. Hold on, I want to make a real quick note to talk with you about, Tom. Could you go back to that slide for me real quick?
Sure. Did I spell something wrong?
No, you did not. I didn't look if you did. I don't think so. All right, I'm good.
Okay. So let's go back here. We all know what productivity is, right? Allowed time divided by actual time.
Mm-hmm. And so what does that mean? Allowed time divided by actual time, Tom? You might have to give a reminder of allowed time because that's not a common term.
Allowed time is the time that you estimate it would take to clean a home. It's the amount of time that the normal worker, the normal cleaning professional in our world, or cleaning technician, would take to clean that home.
Is normal the same thing as average?
Yes.
Okay.
So if you had, like 30 cleaning technicians clean that home, some of them fast, some of them slow, and they're all meeting the same scope of work and getting the same outcome, if you averaged all of the times for those 30 people to get an average, that would be considered the normal time.
So Pam is saying that it's also known as job ticket hours.
You can use that. That is a synonymous term. Yes.
Okay. There's a lot of different terms for this that you'll hear out there. I hear time goal. I've heard, what was the one I just heard today? I don't know, another one today. Can't remember what the other one is.
That's good, Pam. I appreciate that because they're one and the same thing. You can use those interchangeably. So if I clean the home in less time than my job ticket hour time, or in our case, the allowed time, and take the allowed time and divide it by the actual time, I'm going to get a number greater than 1, which is good. We want that number to be as high as it can be, as long as the scope of work is still being met. At some point, that number could get so high that the only way that it could reasonably be that high is somebody's kind of cheating and not following the scope of work. And if you start, you don't want to reward people for having a really high productivity, but they, get a lot of
quality is bad.
Customers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you need to have that balance. But we kind of showed here, if you got like allowed time of 3 hours and an actual time of 2.5 hours, then you'd have a productivity of 120%, 3 divided by 2.5. If you had another cleaner, the same house rather, with another cleaning technician who took 3.5 hours to clean it, and then 3 divided by 3.5 is 96. So obviously, if they could get the same scope of work, you'd rather have cleaner A do it in 2.5 hours as opposed to cleaner B do it in 3.5 hours, because cleaner A is being more productive. They have a higher productivity number, and you're getting a better return on that human capital. You're generating more revenue per hour with cleaner A. You're able to pay cleaner A more money per hour because cleaner A is generating more revenue per hour.
Can you show us some of that, Tom? Can you show us what this means to our bottom line? What does net profit look like? If everything remains the same, but we have someone that is 120% productive versus somebody that's 86% productive, cleaning the same home, how could that, what does that look like to us in terms of money?
Okay, I don't know. We'll see if we can figure it out.
But you're really good at throwing this stuff together. And the reason why I'm asking this, you guys, is so that you can sort of have an idea about how this impacts you. A lot of times we're like, yeah, but he's a little bit slower, but he does such a good job. And what's it really costing me? A couple of bucks? It's not that big of a deal. But I'd like Tom to be able to show you how it really is actually a big deal. Each individual house might not be a problem, but if somebody has an overall productivity rating of 86% and somebody else has an overall productivity rating of 120% in a week, that can be a lot of money.
Well, I guess an example of this would be, say we've got a house, Mrs. Jones's house, and it has a job ticket hour of 4.5. Okay.
Yep.
So let's think about this a little bit. I'm going to insert a couple more columns here. So what would the bill rate be? The total bill. The total bill.
Oh, okay.
Total bill would be 4.5 hours times that, right? We'd be charging $225.
Yep.
See if I can do that. Okay, so let's go back up here to cleaner A and cleaner B, where cleaner A has a productivity of 120% and cleaner B has a productivity of 86%. So we know if we take cleaner A and clean this home in the cleaner A works at 120%, then cleaner A is actually going to take 3.75 hours to clean this home, because we're taking the 4.5 hours and we divide it by 120. So this would be actual time. Okay. And I'll move cleaner A and cleaner B down here just to make it a little easier to see.
I don't know what the Tubcraft coatings are, but they're giving you cute little emojis.
And I'm going to put this over here too. Right. Likewise, cleaner B works at 86%. So if I take my 4.5 and divide it by the 86, that gives me 5.25. Okay. So let's just get rid of this for a minute. Depending on how you do payroll, kind of determines what's going on. But just for the sake of this, let's pretend you have like you have like an hourly rate that you're paying, and what and let's make it a little more real. We want to do our loaded. So we'll start off by saying that our loaded direct hourly rate, so we're paying $15 an hour and our labor load is 20%. So that's another $3. That would be $18. Okay. Yep. You guys with me?
Is everybody following along? Give me a yes if you're following along, or a no if we left you back there a while ago. I think it's looking pretty good so far, Tom.
Okay. So my total loaded pay would be $18 an hour times that, or $67. But on the other side, with cleaner B, it would be $94.
So, and right here, we're just talking about one house, Tom, right?
This is just one house. This is just one house. So Remember, loaded direct payroll is what we call a proxy for gross profit. Excuse me, for our COGS, cost of goods sold. And the formula, just to remind us, is revenue minus cost of goods sold gives us gross profit. And out of our gross profit, we have to pay our operating expense. So we subtract our operating expense from gross profit to get our net profit. So what we're going to do is show what our gross profit was off of each one of these jobs. And hence our loaded direct payroll to revenue number. Our gross profit this is where I miss having a live audience because I could ask the question and people could tell me. We all know it would be, what did we say? Our revenue, which is 225 minus our cost of goods sold, which in this case is our total loaded pay.
Because remember the proxy.
157. And I got to put a little dollar sign there so I can copy that over. And over here with our slower cleaner, it's only $130. So if we want to know what our
The divide. So that $27 between there is money that we are basically giving away for every house that this person cleans.
our loaded direct payroll to revenue is this number divided by this number.
Yeah, might be getting in the weeds here a little bit, Tom.
No.
No, as far as understanding, trying to keep all of these terms and numbers in people's heads. All right, so explain what you're talking about right here.
What are you talking about here? On this case, with your cleaning professional that's working at 120%, you're able to actually have $157 left over from this $225 job to pay your fixed expenses. And then once that's taken care of, that's basically profit. Said another way, 30 cents out of every dollar is going to pay your COGS, your variable cost. Another 70 cents is going to cover your other fixed cost and profit. You can make money really fast that way. Am I losing people?
No, here's where I think we're still missing a piece for a lot of people. So we have two things that we still want to show. So if we are making $27 off of every additional dollars off of every house that an employee cleans for an entire week, we can see, and one employee usually can clean 2 houses a week. Tom will show us how much money we are actually just sort of letting go with 10 houses, right? So we already know it's $27 times 10 is obviously $270 a week that we're letting go. That adds up really fast. That's over $1,000 a month that this employee is costing you, that you could be making that you're not making. Now we are comparing the higher productivity to the lower productivity. So it's not exactly the same as if they were meeting it exactly on time. They would still be losing half that though, $500 a month. So that's still a good chunk of change you probably don't want to be getting rid of. All right, and then one more thing that I think we're missing here, Tom, is a lot of times when people are talking about LDPR, they ask the question, what should the percentage be? And a lot of times we'll say that, if your percentage is somewhere in the 40 to 42% range, you're doing pretty well. You're doing okay. And so right here, we have 42% on Cleaner B. So can you explain for everybody why that's not the total number? That's not because we haven't added in the efficiency piece and all the other pieces, why that person's LDPR just for this one house is 42%, but
it's not for the day.
Yeah, it's not for the whole day and definitely not for the whole week. So,
but if you're just looking at it on a per job basis, this is what you were really, really going after, I think, Liz. The amount of actual profit, and this is just could go straight down to the bottom line that you made off of Cleaner A as opposed to Cleaner B is the difference between this $57.50 and this $30.50. It's $27. If I take this $27 divided by the $225 is what we bill for the job. That's 12%. So oftentimes we talk about what is your net profit percentage, which is net profit divided by the total revenue, the very top number, the very bottom number on your P&L divided by the very top number on your P&L.
Mm-hmm.
And, that can vary based on a lot of things, but for a lot of companies, if that's 10%, they're doing pretty good. I mean, some of the most profitable companies in the world, that number is a whole lot smaller than 10%, but they've got billions and billions of dollars on that top line. But for a house cleaning business, a lot of people feel that 10% is kind of the starting point. Well, you just doubled it because this is an additional 12% that would go on whatever your net profit percent would be.
And for those of you that are working on how to improve your net profit, this is one of the really important things that you have to look at. Pam has a good question here, Tom. She says her slower cleaners always have excuses as to why houses take too long. How do you manage that? So do you have any insight for Pam? I have a couple of things.
Always excuses for why the home takes too long. Well, I guess it depends what type of systems you have in place. I mean, if you're tracking the amount of time it takes them to clean every home and comparing that to your job ticket hour or your allowed time, you'd be able to say that, why is it that, this is kind of a trend that we see from home to home to home to home. This isn't a one-off. If somebody is typically 120%, and they have this one home that comes in at, 80%, then, a lot of times the excuse might carry some weight. But if they're always slow, then, they might have an excuse, but it's a non-conforming issue that has to be resolved.
So another thing, Pam, is I think that you use the word excuse really well in this situation. If like in Tom's example, if it's a one-off or it's one home, then maybe they have a good reason for why this home was off. But if their overall average is like Cleaner B's 86%, if their productivity is at 86%, then now they become excuses, because now you're just trying to excuse away your lower productivity. So the question changes when it's an excuse versus a reason. A one-off, you might have a good reason, and the answer can change that. But if the question is around your overall productivity, now the question is different and the answer is also different, because it's really hard to say for someone to give you reasons for why every single one of their houses take them longer than the other team or the other person or the average, whatever that is. Does that help at all, Anne? Hoping it does. Let's see, Ernie, but if you are grossing only $400,000 a year and profit is only 10% or 40K, yeah, I can't go down further than what Ernie is saying.
That's it.
that does make that, you're right. Oh, I thought there was a comma there. That makes a huge difference. You're right, Ernie. I mean, if you're making $400,000 a year and your profit is 10% and you bring home 40 grand, or 52% and you're going to bring home 52 grand, you choose, right? So, and that's actually, remember, this is a little bit different because we're only talking about the productivity in the homes, because there is still that efficiency factor. They have to play together. Our team homes, first time cleans and our larger homes. Some cleaners would rather not work with them, and that's starting to cause problems. Okay, and it gets really sticky. Yeah, on our team homes, first time cleans and our larger homes. Some cleaners would rather not work with them, and that's starting to cause problems. Well, especially if they're getting paid job ticket hours or commission or percentage. Can't really blame people for not wanting to work with the people who are not productive. Right? They'll say she's too slow. I end up doing, I'm sure we've all heard all of these things. I end up doing the whole house and all she did was one bathroom or one bedroom or whatever the thing is, right? So you can't really blame people if they really are more productive than the other person, especially if it's a huge margin, like Tom was showing, 86% to 120%. So Pam, I would say for you, if you are tracking productivity and you can say with some reasonable amount of certainty what an individual's productivity is, and I think, Tom, you said it takes 30, right? At least 30 homes.
At least.
At least 30 homes to get a reasonable productivity rating on somebody. Then, but if you're doing that and you can see that somebody is routinely sitting at a lower percentage. Oh, Tom, for the record, what percentage do we want?
In terms of productivity?
Yeah.
We want it to be, 100 or more.
As high as possible, but
Yeah.
we don't want it falling below 100%.
Yeah,
sure.
and the whole idea here is a concept called continuous improvement. It's like, what do you, regardless of where you are, it's kind of like losing weight. You are where you are, and you have a goal, but can you make progress there? Really, it's not like losing weight, excuse me, because is there really an optimum productivity? There's always an opportunity to get better, right? So even if you're at 120%, you still, am I just as good as I can be, or do I need to continue to work on my game, so to speak, to figure out, how can I maybe achieve a higher level of quality and maintain my productivity? I mean, there's always something that somebody needs to be working on, right?
And I think the key there, Tom, is we just got to keep in mind that productivity goes along with, it doesn't play by itself. Gotcha. I'll continue tracking and see how she's doing on average with the 30 home average. I think she slows down subconsciously on group jobs because those jobs have been right on. Well, there you go. That would be a great piece of information to have, that she's less productive on a team than she is as a solo. So that gives you a good piece of information, a good piece of data.
If I work slower, the other person's cleaning more house. I don't have to work as hard.
Yeah. And a lot of times people do this not intentionally, but they just relax a little because they feel like they have help. It's like, so they probably don't even recognize that they're doing this a lot of times.
Where you really see that is, say you typically work 2-person teams and you put a third person on that team, and you hear this time and time again. It's like, if you've got 6 allowed hours and 2 people can clean it in 3 hours, almost without exception. 3 people can't clean it in 2 hours. And there are exceptions, Liz, and I know that you've got some tricks up your sleeve to address that. But for most house cleaning companies, they'll tell you that third person lowers their productivity.
And most people will tell you, if you put 3 people in a 6-hour house, it took 2 people 3 hours, it's going to take 3 people almost 3 hours.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 hours and 50 minutes, 2 hours and 45 minutes. They shave a little bit off, but nowhere near what they should. That's very, very common. and that's again human condition. So you actually have to manage that strictly and stringently.
But we're gonna explain that here on this slide. Let's so we understand what productivity is and how we're measuring it, and how it definitely can impact our costs and our profitability. How do we improve productivity? And I want to start with training. We've got several things here. Training, the equipment and tools that we use are important. Don't have the actual procedures, but work methods themselves is important. I mean, that's part of the training. Performance pay, making sure that we're setting expectations and creating accountability. And if you think about the 3-person, 2-person team, all of this fits into that. If I've got one person working by themselves, teamwork really isn't an issue, right?
Yep.
I get 2 people together, then you got to figure out who's doing what, right?
Yep. What products are we bringing in? How are we over? Who's checking work? There are a lot of different things to consider.
The 3rd person, though, it starts. I mean, the more people you add to the team, the harder it is to get everybody working productively, because there's just more moving parts and more coordination that has to take place.
Definitely have to have stronger systems. You just can't throw another person onto a team. I guess you can, but not in the same amount of money. You got to be really careful. And you're also going to be dealing, again, with efficiency if you have 5 people. So you got to be really working on all of that stuff. I wanted to point out one more thing real quick here. Tom, up at the top, you have training. You guys probably noticed that we hammer on training a lot. Training is just such a vital piece of everything that we do in our service businesses, and not just ours, y'all. The vast majority of service businesses really need to focus more on training. And I'm not sure that training is exactly the right word, because a lot of times people think of training as that thing that happens in the beginning of the job, when you first get to a job and you get this initial training. But training is more than that. It's education. It's increasing your level of knowledge and productivity and efficiency, and learning how to do things. It's more about like learning and absorbing information or something. But we use the word training because it's the word everybody's familiar with, and it really is critical to so much of what we do and how we make money in this job.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a cornerstone of how we improve not only productivity but performance on a greater scale. Because if you're a cleaning professional, there's in our world there's 4 metrics that they own. One is attendance, the other is their quality scores, a third is their productivity, and a 4th is their efficiency. And you put those 4 together, and you might have others in your business. I mean, you can score people on how well they embrace your core values. I mean, there's a million different ways that you can come up with ways of scoring. But, for starters, if you aren't creating, setting expectations, accountability on those 4, I don't think it's balanced. I see some people put it like a heavy emphasis on quality, and that's great, but that's not the only thing. You can have excellent quality and still not make money.
We've seen that more times than we can count.
Right.
So we see more people having problems with their profit margin that have excellent quality than people who don't. So that's very telling, because normally the higher quality a company has, the more money they should be expecting to make. But quality all by itself doesn't solve the problem.
But you
I love the 4 measures.
Yeah, you throw those 4 measures in there, and if you're driving on all 4, you're gonna your odds of being profitable go up greatly. So we're going to talk about training. A lot of times the example that was given earlier, where our slow people always have excuses. I've seen cleaning business owners jump to the conclusion that, well, this person, this cleaning technician is just slow. Like it's a chronic affliction that we can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Can we talk a minute about talent versus skill and how that fits into, how do we address that slow cleaning technician?
Sure. I'd love to hear what you have to say about talent with regards to productivity, Tom.
Well, the definition of talent, we've talked about this before, is kind of the God-given aptitude that somebody has to do something. Michael Jordan is a more talented basketball player than I am. And all things being equal, we could practice and work the same amount of time, and he's still going to be better than I am.
Mm-hmm.
Where skill is what it's basically what you do with your talent and practice and study and working to become better. Skills can be learned, where talent is kind of what you are given.
And skill is also what you do with not only your talent, but your lack of talent. So how you work with that. So speak to us about that in terms of productivity, Tom, instead of basketball.
So
what does that look like?
Let's think of it this way. I'm gonna just say talent times skill equals performance. So you got some cleaning professionals that work with you, that work for you, that you might just know they don't move as fast, or maybe they don't have the same amount of stamina or strength or whatever you might be talking about. Those would be the talent part, okay? But regardless of, I'm sorry?
The part that they come with naturally, that they didn't have to work on to get, they just automatically have it.
Right.
Okay.
But regardless of where you fall on that spectrum, it's almost, I'm picturing like a graph with an X and a Y axis. And, the more talent you have and the harder you work at developing your skills, the higher level of performance you're going to get. But maybe you aren't the most talented, maybe you're not the most gifted cleaning professional out there. But if you work at your trade and if you work at developing your skills, you can still improve your performance and you can still improve your productivity. So that's
I have a really good example for this. So I had an employee. She doesn't work for anymore. She worked for us for about 6 years. And she is what you would call the slowest person on the planet. She just moved so slowly. It was like she's never going to be able to be a productive house cleaner. It's just never going to happen. But she worked for us for 6 years for a really good reason, because what she learned how to do is to move very, very slowly and efficiently. She had no wasted movement at all. She never did this, ever. Instead, she did this always. And every movement that she did, she moved very slowly. She covered twice as much space. She never overdid anything. And because of that, she was one of our most productive people. And she was always my little poster child when people would say, I don't want to work with somebody because they're too slow. I'm like, well, they just need more practice, like Ernie said, and they need more experience, and they need more tools, how to be able to be better. And we're going to time Rachel. We're not going to tell her that we're timing her on a kitchen that we know takes everybody else 50 minutes. And let's find out how long it takes Rachel, the slowest person in the company. And of course, it would take Rachel 45 to 50 minutes. So I think that's a perfect example.
It's an excellent example. And, Ernie is making a point that kind of picks up on that, skill and talent certainly the skill can improve with experience. And this particular, cleaning professional you're talking to, I'm sure that, the speed at which she had after she'd been with you for a few years was a lot higher than what it was when she first started.
Yeah. And also once you started doing it, it was so smooth. It would a lot of times look slow to people, but it wasn't slow. It was very quick because she was getting so much work done. So productive.
But when she first started, I'm guessing that she was one of those people that you guys were having a discussion. I don't know if she's going to make it or not. I don't know if we can ever get her to the point where she can be productive enough to carry her weight.
Yeah, zero talent. I would say when she first came to work for us, she had zero talent. I don't know that she had ever cleaned anything in her whole life. She would just hold the cloth wrong. It was like she did everything wrong. She couldn't really, she never remembered to look up and look down. Naturally when you're cleaning, we tend to want to clean all of the things in the space that we're cleaning. She didn't. She cleaned pretty much between her forehead and her hips. Anything that was in that area.
So the point is, regardless of how slow someone is, they can be faster. They can be more productive.
Yes.
And they can do.
I do want to say one thing, because we house cleaners, we business owners have a tendency to overinvest in people sometimes. Yes. Everybody, I think almost everyone can be taught the skills of residential house cleaning, and they can be more productive. But sometimes that investment might be more than you want to put in, more than you have time for, more than you can afford. Well, maybe, especially if your company is smaller, you might not be able to afford the time, the resources that are going to have to be poured into this person to build their skills.
Some problems, I don't want to say can't be fixed, but from a practical standpoint, you shouldn't try to fix them.
Yeah.
You're better off as a business owner, as a company, to shake hands and part ways. Absolutely.
You got to come up with those numbers yourself. What are those time frames? What are those benchmarks? What do they have to be able to do to make them worthwhile? Now, what I can say is, with this gal that we had, she had so many amazing qualities that we really wanted in our company that we were willing to invest in her. It ended up paying off for us, because over the course of those next 6 years, we did make a lot of money from her, and she was a great role model for a lot of other people. And she had the skill. She could show people how to clean. It was ridiculous. So we made money, but I don't know. I wouldn't do that with everybody.
No, but let's think about it. We're talking, about attendance. If somebody has excellent attendance, and if their quality is really good, they're slow. Efficiency we haven't gotten to yet, but if they've fit your company culture, and if they bring something, we have this term that we talk about, our cultural DNA. If they make your company better from a culture standpoint, a lot of times it's worth making the investment to help them develop their skills, so they can at least get to a level of productivity that warrants the level of compensation that you're going to want to give them.
Yeah. There are the 4 things that you really need to be tracking. And if somebody is heavily lacking in more than one area, I really look twice. I really look twice at whether or not we have the resources that we are willing to pour into this person.
There's more that I will certainly, add to this tomorrow, but another thing
Time. I just saw the time.
Okay. Well, you'll have to come back tomorrow, because this was going to be an awesome point.
Do you want to just type it in there?
I want to talk about methods. And this is basically just the industrial engineering concept of doing work design in a way to help people be more productive. And there's a lot that goes into this. And we're going to talk about, there's a difference between motion and movement, if you will. And shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. And there's a lot of concepts that, go into this. And it's, it's akin to some of the work that is done in the area of speed cleaning. A lot of those same methods go
Yes.
back to industrial engineering techniques, and we'll pick up our discussion tomorrow and talk about that in terms of how you can help your less productive cleaning professionals improve their speed.
Just do me a favor and pop Ernie's last comment on the screen before we go. Yeah, the smaller the company, the more important that culture fit is. That is so very, very true. I just want to make sure that we hit that point before we sign off here, Tom.
Yeah, that's right.
Good. We'll be glad to see you tomorrow. Just saw that my two slowest were under time and a move in today. We tried a new technique and put them together, and it worked. All right. All right.
If I don't speed up, we're never going to get out of this house.
Sometimes that works.
We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, guys.
Tomorrow. Bye-bye.